Welcome to the Life You Crave. Simple and sustainable weight loss for women who have better things to do than diet. I'm your host, Leah Pinelli. I help ambitious, badass women stop overeating, overworking, and overgiving to lose weight from a place of love. I'll help you simplify weight loss, end your overwhelm, and create the life you crave. If you like what you hear, please like and subscribe to this podcast. Let's get started.
Well, hello, women, wine, and world domination, world dominators. Here we are going live today. Today's topic is called How to Stop Cheating. And I put cheating in parentheses because in my world, we don't cheat ourselves, right? Like, we love ourselves too much. We respect ourselves too much to cheat ourselves. But I put cheating in the title because that is how most of us think about it. Today, we are focusing on food and what it means to, quote unquote, cheat with food. Hold on, I'm going to pull my notes to the side here. What it means to cheat with food. But to be honest with you, this video training really can apply to any kind of habit that maybe you are struggling with developing consistency around, whether it's, quitting a habit such as, eating chips and cookies on a too regular basis, or whether it's, of course, I'm adjusting my lighting now here too for you guys, or whether it is maybe starting a habit like an exercise routine, anything that you're trying to create for yourself that you are struggling with consistency around. This training is going to help you. I am specifically talking today about food and your eating patterns, because I know that there are quite a few people here in Women, Wine, and World Domination that are struggling with that. And that happens to be my superpower. So I'm going to help with that today so that we can focus on what actually really matters, which is funneling all of that energy that we're currently using worrying about food and body stuff, and instead solve that freaking problem once and for all so that we can focus on what really matters, such as building a baller business or running for office or even just caring for your family or yourself better. So let's get started on why we tend to lose it on the evenings and the weekends, why we tend to cheat evenings and weekends. I chose this topic today because this topic comes up all the time. By the way, if you're here, I see a couple of you are here, so please say hello in the comments. This comes up all the time. People say to me all the time, like, I'm so quote unquote good during the day or good during the week, and then I lose it on the evenings and weekends. So today I'm going to share with you why that happens, why it's normal actually for that to happen, but also how you can solve that problem so that you no longer struggle with that inconsistency. All right. So here is what you need to know. The first thing is that most of us who are watching this video in the Women, Wine, and World Domination group or are listening to this on the Life You Crave podcast, most of us are highly ambitious, driven women. So most of us are actually female business owners or women in some kind of leadership position in our lives and in the world. And so what that means is when you're highly ambitious and you're highly driven, it means you do a lot. It often means that you need a lot of energy and that you use a lot of energy. You expend a lot of energy each and every day. I know for a lot of us, we wake up in the morning, we hit the ground running. Some people as early as 5 a.m. That used to be me. And we go until we pretty much hit the pillow at the end of the night. What happens here when we live lives this way is we create a pressure cooker effect, is how I like to think about it, right? It's this pressure cooker effect that basically all throughout the day, we are pushing. We're using what I call push energy to accomplish, to fuel the drive, right? To achieve whatever it is that we want to achieve and check off of our lists today. And it creates a significant amount of pressure. And so what happens, if you think about a pressure cooker, the pressure, it starts off with no pressure when you first put the lid on, but then over time it builds and builds and builds and builds. For women, it is building over the course of the day until you get to 5, 6, 7 p.m. at night. And all of a sudden, you are like a pressure cooker that's been under pressure all day. Even if you are creating this pressure yourself, right? Like totally normal for you to create this pressure yourself, particularly if you are a highly driven woman. So when we create this pressure ourselves, at the end of the day, we feel like we need to release the pressure cooker, right? We do. We need to release the pressure. We need to let off steam. Totally normal, totally expected. Even, like I said, if you're creating this pressure for yourself, for a lot of us, it's a labor of love. Like for me, I was just saying this to my Fempire, which is my private group, my private community. I love my work. I love what I do. I actually really love working. So I can find myself working. I work for myself. I own my own business. So nobody's telling me to work, but I love it so much that I'll go. In a previous life, when I did work for other people, I would work, not because I loved it, but because my boss was telling me to, or the culture was demanding that I work. Either way, those are both stressors. One of them is called eustress, EU, which means that it is actually stress that feels good. It's like, oh, I love my work, so I'm going to keep working. It's still causing a stressor effect on your life. It's still having all of those physiological effects of stress on your body, even if it's a good stress, like I love my job stress, or it's a crappy stress. I hate my job. I hate my boss. I'm overworked stress, or anything in between. So either way, all of that stress building up in our bodies, all of that pressure, we need a release. Okay, so that's fair, right? And I know for a lot of us, we're like, okay, I know I need a release, but I don't want to go to food for that release because it's causing unwanted, weight gain, or it's causing unwanted health effects, such as, I've got, high blood sugar levels or high triglycerides or whatever it is. And I really want to change my eating patterns because of that. But I need that pressure cooker release at the end of the day. So what's happening there is humans are motivated by 3 things and 3 things only. This is called the motivational triad in psychology. And basically what the motivational triad says is that we are hardwired to be motivated by 3 things and 3 things only. Oh, Erin's here. Hi, Erin. I just saw that you're here. I'm so glad you're here. We are motivated by 3 things and 3 things only. The first thing that we're motivated by is pleasure. Hardwired to seek pleasure. This is why women's breast milk is sweet, right? To keep babies eating. This is why food tastes good, by the way. This is why Mother Nature coupled pleasure and reproduction. It's literally a survival mechanism to propagate the human race, right? To keep us going. So we're motivated by pleasure, and we are also motivated to avoid pain or to avoid discomfort. Again, survival mechanism. I think you can figure that out, right? If we weren't hardwired to avoid discomfort, we might, back in when we were living up in caves, we might have never left the cave, right? Because we weren't in any kind of discomfort from hunger or cold or warm, right? It motivates us to go out and fix the discomfort. And then the last thing we're motivated by, when I talk about the triad, the motivational triad, the last thing we're motivated by is least amount of effort possible. So energy conservation. So Mother Nature has designed us humans to seek pleasure, avoid pain, and do it with the least amount of energy possible. Again, survival mechanism, right? We want to save our energy for the bear that's coming into our cave ready to eat us alive. We want to save our energy to fight or run or whatever we need to do to defend ourselves against the bear. So the motivational triad is really, really important in understanding why it is that you want a reward at the end of the day to begin with. Because guess what? All that pressure that builds up in your day is uncomfortable. It's not comfortable. It's uncomfortable. So we want to avoid discomfort and we want to move toward pleasure. Well, in our modern world, this becomes highly problematic because in our modern world, we have pleasure literally at our fingertips, anytime, any place. And we have these really fast and efficient, low energy ways of getting them, right? You can get a bag of M&Ms and store it in your pantry forever. They will not rot, right? And so therefore, you are the motivational triads, let me get some pleasure. Oh, those M&Ms, they're going to give me a quick hit of pleasure in the form of dopamine. I'm going to get a quick hit of pleasure. I'm going to feel better because I have now this dopamine release, which I'm not going to go too much into dopamine in this live. But now I'm getting this quick hit of pleasure with very little energy. All I had to do was get up and go to my pantry and get the M&Ms. Even if you're one of those people that's like, oh no, I don't let that stuff even be in my house. Well, you can DoorDash it and you can have an ice cream sundae at your front door in under an hour. That is the motivational triads, like dream come true, right? Because it's quick pleasure. It helps you to move away from the discomfort of that pressure cooker effect feeling, and there's very little energy involved in doing it. So I know for me, before I understood the motivational triad, I used to like make all these plans. I'd be like, okay, today when I come home from work, this is before I worked for myself and I was working in leadership, educational leadership. I was like, when I come home today, I'm going to go for a walk or I'm going to do yoga instead. Because I knew that I was feeling a lot of stress. I knew that I was feeling a lot of pressure. This wasn't like news to me, but I just did not want to continue pouring myself huge glasses of Chardonnay and eating cheese and crackers until dinner time. And then, eating chocolate and pasta and all the things, and then feeling uncomfortable and bloated in my skin. So I would tell myself I was going to do yoga instead, or I'm going to walk because these are really good, healthy things. And my brain knew that would be a better choice for me in terms of my lifestyle and the benefits that I would get than from overeating and over drinking. The problem, though, the reason that I never really did it, maybe I did it once or twice, but probably not. The reason I was never consistent with it, and this is the same reason why for those of you who have done something similar and tried to swap out your crappy eating habits for something healthier, is because the motivational triad, remember the least amount of effort possible, energy conservation, taking a walk and doing yoga are not least amount of energy at all. They actually require more energy. So on top of your go, getter day, now you're like, hey, brain, let's go do some yoga. And your brain's like, oh, hell no. I need least amount of effort possible. I need energy conservation. Let's go get the bread and cheese and the bottle of wine at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and not go for that walk. Do you see what I'm saying? So you're hardwired for this. And it's so important to understand. Now, just because you are hardwired does not mean that you are now, that you're I actually have this little, maybe you can't see it because it's backwards, but it says your brain is your bitch. Just because you're hardwired this way doesn't mean that you have to be your brain's bitch. It doesn't mean that the motivational triad has to drag us around by our hair. We can circumvent this problem. And we don't need to be mad at it either. The motivational triad literally keeps us alive. So it's a good thing. We just need to be the rulers of our brains and not let our brains rule us. So I think you can see now why this is a problem in our modern world, the motivational triad coupled with our modern world. But the other thing that I need you to understand here in terms of what is feeding this problem is the way that habits are formed. And again, I could do an entire live podcast on habit formation, but I'm going to give you the quick and dirty here just for our purposes, because I am so determined today to not go past 27 minutes for this. And by the way, for those of you who are watching me live in the group, you will be able to listen to this on the Life You Crave podcast. And for those of you who are listening to this on the podcast and you want to join the group so that you can come see these trainings live, you can just go to facebook.com/ oh gosh, I think it's / WWWD for Women, Wine, and World Domination, WWWD, Facebook groups. So here is where it gets even trickier. You have the motivational triad, you have the problem with our modern world, and now we have habit formation. And all this is, the part that you need to know about this for today's purposes is this. When you start to, if you've ever heard this term, what fires together, wires together. I think it came from a psychologist with the last name of Hems, I think it was. What fires together, wires together. What that means is the more that you do one thing and you couple it with doing something else, either at the same time, so simultaneously, or back to back, so stacking them together, eventually these two things become associated in your brain as a pattern, right? And your brain loves patterns. Your brain loves habits. Why? Because when you can relegate something to a habit or a pattern, it means your brain no longer has to use energy in order to execute that thing. And remember, your brain is hardwired to conserve energy. So that's why you can chew gum and walk at the same time. It's because your brain doesn't have to actively think about walking for most of us and doesn't have to actively think about chewing because it's just a habit. Your brain knows how to chew, your brain knows how to walk. It's the same reason why every morning I get up, I go pee, and then I brush my teeth. I don't drink water, I don't do anything until I brush my teeth. For me, waking up and brushing my teeth are coupled. It is a pattern that my brain is now totally adapted to. So why is this important? Well, because if you have created a pattern for yourself of pressure cooker effect all day long, and then for me, it was wine and cheese and crackers or cheese and bread or something delicious like that. What was happening is my brain started to associate, and there's some really interesting studies on this, but I'm not going to get into them here. My brain started to associate the dusk, right? So the sun setting, end of the workday, with wine, with yummy snacks, right? So no matter what, no matter where I was or what I was doing, that time of day my brain was like, oh, this is that time of day where she opens a bottle of wine, she gets out some yummy snacks. That's what we are coupling with this time of day. It becomes that association, a habit association. This is really important because, even better example, I used to have a 2:00 habit when I worked in educational leadership. I'd be in my office and at 2:00, I had to have a cup of coffee, dark chocolate covered almonds, and popcorn. And that association became, I would get very tired, right? I would start to really drag at 2 p.m., which I know a lot of you can identify with. I would really start to drag at 2 p.m. So my brain was like, oh, let's go get a pick-me-up. Caffeine, some sugar, some salty carbs, delicious. Well, eventually my brain started to associate that feeling of energetic dip with sugar, caffeine, and carbs, right? So why is this important? Because now my brain is creating coupling a sensation of tired, dragging with sugar and caffeine and carbs, salty. So that association now gets coupled. So I want you to think, if you're watching this right now, I want you to think, and even drop in the chat, if you would, even if you're watching the replay, what feelings has your brain started to couple or associate with behaviors, particularly eating behaviors, or even for those of you who don't struggle with food, but you're watching this, right? Maybe it's the point in the day where you start to check out on Facebook, or it's the point in your day when you go and you end up, watching TV or just doing something unproductive when really you had planned to do something productive. It is that coupling that creates a habit and creates a pattern that becomes very difficult to break, particularly for those of you who are struggling with your relationship with sugar and or alcohol. Now, when I talk about alcohol, I am not referring to anybody who is working or struggling with alcoholism. That is beyond the scope of this conversation. I'm simply talking about the pattern of pouring a glass or chew, a beer, wine, whatever it is, same pattern every day. And even though you don't overdrink necessarily, it's something that you feel like you just can't really go without because you've associated it with this pressure release. Sugar is the same. The problem becomes with the motivational triad and habit formation when you add into that certain foods like sugar and alcohol that actually have addictive properties to them. Now you're really firing and wiring, right? Now you're like tightening those wires so tightly because now not only are you contending with a psychological association with those two, but you're also contending now with an actual physiological association or a physiological, not necessarily dependency, but a habit, right? That your body's now used to, and our bodies like habits because we don't have to think about them. Okay, so what is the solution to all of this? You're like, great, Leah, thanks. So now you basically told me like why I happen to, I didn't tell you about motivation. Oh, I'm about to go there actually. The other part of this is that a lot of us think we just need more willpower, right? So it's like, oh my gosh, like I just need more willpower in the evenings. I need more willpower on the weekends. But the problem with willpower is actually a finite resource. And let's just say, let's use this as an example. Let's say that every morning you wake up and you get 5 units of willpower. So every time you sleep, because sleep actually does help with willpower, You wake up in the morning and you have 5 fresh units of willpower. Well, all throughout the day, you are using willpower, right? So if you decide to put on your sneakers and go to the gym before work, you really don't want to, but you're kind of forcing yourself to, you are using willpower. If you decide to pass on cookies in the break room, or to not go get the M&Ms if you're working from home and snack on them, or the Cheez-Its or whatever it is, you just used a little hit of your willpower, like one of the units of your willpower. So what happens is we use willpower all day long, and a lot of times we don't even realize it. And then we get to the end of the day, and guess what? We are willpower depleted. There is no more willpower. So we end up beating ourselves up because we think we need more willpower, but you aren't designed to have infinite stores of willpower. You're a normal human. It just doesn't work the way that you think it works. The other thing is we often think we just need more motivation. I'm not going to go into motivation today. That's a whole other training, but I will tell you it's a myth. You don't need more motivation and you don't need more willpower. What you do need, I'm going to give you the solution right now, is you do need to actually understand everything that I've shared with you so that you can work with it. And I'm going to give you 3 things that you need to do, starting right now, 3 things that you need to do in order to actually stop, quote unquote, cheating on the evenings and weekends. Let me take a sip of water. Okay, here's what you need first. So in my community, the Fempire, I teach a method called the FEMS system, F-E-M-S, FEMS system. And I'm not teaching it all here today, obviously, but I will share with you that the E in the FEMS system stands for envision. You need a vision of yourself, your life, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. You need a vision of yourself. Now, I take my clients through a whole process of developing a vision that they actually can tap into and work with on a daily basis. For our purposes here, here's all you really need to know. You want to get a really clear picture of what does your future self, what does she do after a long, pressure-filled day at work? What does she do? How does she... Now, I want you to take into consideration, though, the motivational triad. So don't tell me that she comes home and does yoga, because that's probably not going to serve you. It's probably not really realistic given what you've learned here today about energy and energy stores and energy depletion. So what does she do? What does her behavior look like? And then I would even take it a step further and actually take a look at your day. Like, what is causing all of the pressure in your day? Does it have to be so pressure filled, right? So you can really work this backward to start to look at, why is my life so pressureful? Why do I live a life? Do I want to live a life where I feel like I need a reward at the end of the day because I've worked so dang hard? Is there a possibility that the hard work, there's a different payoff from that hard work? Is there a possibility that maybe I don't want to work that hard, right? So really starting to look at your future self. What does your ideal life look like? What are her behaviors like? What does her life look like? And then the second step, so that's your vision, creating that vision for yourself from the E and N vision of FEMS. The second thing that you would then need to do is you need to make a plan. Now, I don't mean that you're making a plan to become your future self. I mean, I want you to do that, but that's not necessarily the assignment here today. The assignment here today is actually making a plan that is aligned with the woman you want to be in the future. And I want you to think about, what actions can I take today with food or with habit formation that would actually be hooking up my future self? I'm going to hook her up. I love my future self so much that I'm going to take certain actions today that will hook up my future self. For example, if I want to feel, even if the future self is tomorrow, I want to feel really good. And this is actually true. I want to feel really good and really well rested by Thursday. Today's Tuesday. I am not going to drink any alcohol or eat any sugar today or tomorrow, because I know that those two things can mess with my energy levels. So I'm going to hook up my future self even as early as Thursday by making choices today that are aligned with who I want to be as soon as Thursday, right? Or even as soon as tomorrow. So you really want to hook her up by being, in a way, you're being her now so that you can truly be her in the future. The last thing that you're going to do is you're going to create a vision, you're going to create a plan to hook up your future self. And then the last thing that you're going to do is you're going to do a pattern interrupt. And this is where essentially a pattern interrupt is where you start to just notice your behaviors. And you're going to start by noticing them. Everybody here is likely very good at noticing your behavior in the past, in hindsight. Okay. So I know last night I overate, I overdrank, I over whatevered. And so now I'm recognizing it. So when you do a pattern interrupt, what you want to do is you want to now envision, this goes back to the envisioning piece and the planning for future self. You want to envision, okay, if I could go back and do it again, what would I do differently? And you make note of that. This is an actual psychological exercise. This is not just me blowing smoke up your ass, right? You go back and you do you can write this out or you can think it through, but what would I do differently if I could go back and do it again? The second thing you're going to do then, the second question you're going to ask is, ask yourself, what will I do differently in the future? And this is you getting into future casting, you using your brain, your psychological faculty to actually project into the future how you want to do it differently. And what you're doing is you're actually starting to repattern your brain right there in the moment, because you are doing this exercise of exercising your brain to think differently about your current behaviors. And then what you're going to do is the next time you catch yourself in the moment, and this can sometimes take practice to catch yourself in the moment, you're going to do a pattern interrupt. You're going to stop in the moment. And I know this is really hard to do if you're on a roll, but you're going to stop in the moment and you're going to ask yourself, what is the feeling that I'm having that is driving me to want to overeat or overdrink in the first place? And that, even just that pause, is going to start to raise your awareness. Now, you have two choices. You can either redirect your behavior right there in that moment. And to be totally honest with you, that often requires, for consistency, a level of support, community. So I really encourage you to come in here into the Women, Wine, and World Domination group and ask for support and community around your pattern interrupts. Or you can get into community like my Fempire or another community that's actually going to guide you through this process with a strong container of support to hold you up. But when you do a pattern interrupt in the moment, you can either stop and redirect yourself in that moment, or you can also just stop, raise your awareness, and then let it go. I will share with you that when I did this process many, many years ago, and I still do it, what I learned was that I was eating because I was actually quite dissatisfied. When I asked myself, what's the feeling that's driving me to want to eat right now? It wasn't just, oh, I have this, pressure-filled day, although I did. But there was also a very, very deep dissatisfaction that I was experiencing in my life, particularly in my career. And what came of that was, as I learned with support how to pattern interrupt and then redirect and say, okay, I'm recognizing now. It was only when I stopped eating my feelings that I was able to see just how dissatisfied I was in my career. And once I realized, oh, I'm not eating because I'm addicted to sugar. I'm not eating because of habit formation and the coupling of habits and feelings. I am eating because I don't want to face the fact that I am so dissatisfied with the career that I invested a lot of time and money in building, right? And so when I did that, I was left with a very important question, which is, okay, well, what do I want to do about that, right? Like, do I want to be somebody who lives her life working in a career for 40 years that she doesn't love? Or do I want to do something different? And it turned out that I decided, I took a very, 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 very scary leap, and I started my own business and quit that career. And that's a whole nother story in and of itself. But I promise you that if I had never learned the root, if I never got to the root of why I was overeating in the first place, I guarantee you I would still be in that career. And I guarantee you I would probably have a lot more than 30 pounds of unwanted weight on my body. And I would be pretty miserable. So that is what I have for you today. So in summary, you got to remember, you're totally normal. You are motivated by the motivational triad, coupled with this modern environment, which make things really, really, really hard. I also want you to know that you can do hard things. A lot of you in this group have birthed babies. That is really hard. Or at least raised some children. That is really hard. you can perform a pattern interrupt, and that pattern interrupt can be life-changing. It can get you to the root of why you're overeating in the first place, creating that vision for yourself from the FEM system and creating a plan to really align yourself with that vision. And last but not least, I so strongly encourage you to get into a community of support. We can be that support for you here in Women, Wine, and World Domination. But if you actually get into a structured community of support like my Fempire, what happens is you go so much faster and so much further, so much more quickly, because you have this system that you are now actually applying in your life and getting results from. So I would love to hear your takeaways from this. Drop any questions or comments in the chat below, and I will see you all at the next live. I do go live in this group once a week on Tuesdays at noon Eastern, although I won't be here next week. Maybe I'll be here next week. I haven't decided yet because I am on vacation. All right, everybody. I love and adore you all. See you soon.
You've been listening to The Life You Crave. I lost 30 pounds years ago without dieting, willpower, or deprivation. I'm on a mission to help other women, including you, do the same. You can book a free weight loss strategy session with me over at leahpinelli.com. That's LIAPINELLI.com. See you on our next call or on the next episode. And remember to like, subscribe, and leave a comment on iTunes.